Welcome to the Educate and Empower podcast, where we educate the community around healthcare and a healthy lifestyle. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Educate and Empower podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca East, nurse practitioner, CEO and founder of the Holistic Care Collective. I am so looking forward to just a good old chit chat with my dear friend Sammi today. Thanks Sammi so much for being here today.
You're so welcome. How privileged to be called a great friend.
We are, and we annoy each other every day. And we've got a fantastic relationship that we've grown over the last fair few years. And I'm sure we'll come through with that as we talk about your health and wellbeing journey, which is, as I said, that's what we really want to talk about today. It's just refreshing to see someone take action. And I did some stories on my on my Instagram this morning about actually just how proud I am of particularly women this week of actually, grabbing life by the balls and going, actually, I'm not happy with how my life is feeling, or B, I know that there is something not quite right for me. And taking action and getting some support and engaging in someone like myself or their GP or what have you, that really then starts that health and wellbeing journey, because your journey has been not just, a simple journey. No one's is. But I believe the reason I asked you to be here was just because I know that someone will learn something from you. Or, as I said, this whole podcast is based on empowering people to actually seek action for themselves. So thanks so much for being here. Tell us a little bit about you. Who are you? Who's Sammi Gelch?
My goodness, I am still discovering who I am.
Good answer.
Always, when people ask me that, my first initial thing is like, I'm a mum to 2 boys. I'm married to a man. I'm a teacher. I've got my own business, all of those things. But I think I am still discovering who I actually am, who I am,
Yeah.
not who I am as a mum, as a wife, as a teacher, as a business owner. That's my real answer. Like,
I love that. I love that. So let's talk about, as I said, you're here to talk about, we could talk about anything, and quite often on a Friday afternoon we would, but where did your health and wellbeing journey start from? Let's break it down into past, current, and then we'll talk about future at the end of the podcast.
Sure. It's a big one. It is really a big one. And I think something happens when you become a parent that just really pulls all the, I want to swear. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, absolutely.
That just like strips all the shit back, Like it just strips all the layers, it strips all the shit back, and you're just left. And for me, after my second child, so like he is nearly 7, I wasn't left with a lot. Like all the shit got stripped back, and I was like, who am I? What do I want? Like I'm looking after these 2 little kids, and I felt like every day was Groundhog Day. And honestly, I got into this, probably looking back now, it was probably postnatal depression, like it probably was. But trying all of those things for years, like since I was like 17 or 18, even when I was like 14 and 15, I was put in girls groups, for my confidence and things like that. And I love my parents for putting me in that, but nothing just ever felt like this was going to help me and move me forward. And then I hit rock bottom after having my second, like to the point where I couldn't even like do a load of laundry, like I was just done. And it was honestly just getting sick of my own shit. Like it was. And I actually can't, like there were definitely some pretty scary moments there, I'm not going to lie. And looking back now, I'm actually so grateful for those moments. Like as scary as they were at the time, something really big had to happen for me to like wake up and see that like I needed to do something to change my life. Um,
Mm.
and I wish it was like this big magical thing that like I discovered this amazing person and they changed my life and this and that. But I think it was a series of things, and I was already in a really positive community, but I just was not absorbing anything. And then, we went away on this conference with all the Arbonne girls, and then generally, like in the middle weekend, like the middle night of the conference, we all just sit around and get takeaway and chill and talk. And I just lost it. I had this huge like breakdown, like massive, massive breakdown. And I was like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want. Like, I don't want my kids to see me like this. Like, I feel like a fraud, all of the things. And those women really held me, and some of them I don't really speak to anymore, but I'll forever be grateful that I was brought into that world and met those people at that certain time. Yeah, so we did a little bit of woo woo stuff. But honestly, the biggest, most pivotal thing for me was just discovering the power of really small things, like just small little steps forward every single day. And the biggest one that changed my life was actually making my bed. And I talk about
Yeah.
this all the time. Like, and people are like, how can making your bed be like such a pivotal, powerful thing? But it just started with making my bed. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to do this for 30 days, like just make my bed. Um, and then I started to build a little bit more confidence. So if I can make my bed, I can do a load of laundry, or I can do this, I can do that. And I wish, again, like I say, I wish it was this big, amazing answer, like, and this magical pill. But it wasn't. Like, it was one small step at a time that honestly people would probably laugh at and be like, oh, I make my bed every day, big shit. Or I don't make my bed, I don't care. Like, but it honestly was making
Mm.
my bed. And if that's all I got done for the day, I was like, shit, I'm awesome. Like, I actually didn't think that at the time, but that was the thing that like moved the needle forward for me, I guess, that 1% change. And then it was a load of laundry, or, getting dressed. Like, some days I didn't even get dressed, or I didn't even leave the house, because it was so much effort. So that was like 6 years ago now. And I honestly believe all of those little changes have led me to where I am now, which is totally unrecognizable. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Isn't it funny how, and I will say this, I'm going to talk about women in particularly in this podcast because obviously, probably, I mean, not obviously, but probably 80% of my patients are
Mm.
female. And I would say 80% of people who will listen to this are female. And it goes for anyone, but um, aren't we all looking for that big moment? Aren't we looking for all that? Like, are we always looking for the magic pill? I know I used to. I absolutely used to, and I still get what I would. I was even talking to Abby about food anxiety today. Like, I'm trying coming out of my back surgery. I don't think I've put on weight. I'm too scared to get on the scales, to be honest. But I don't know what to eat. I don't know how to fuel my body. My tummy is still regenerating from the opioids that I've been taking. Like, there's all the things, right? I'm 3 weeks from surgery, for goodness sake, and I would, should talk listen because I know what I would tell myself if I
You
was
know what I would tell you? I
to.
want to slap you silly. We're lucky we're not in the same room.
But we all want the big next best
Mm.
thing, and we've all tried everything. But as you say, it's the baby steps, and it's the baby small steps. And as you said, you found it was just by making a bed. It might be like someone listening to a headspace in the middle of, like, the app in the middle of the night when their mental chatter is going, to get them better sleep. It might be a supplement. It might be, and it doesn't have to, like, even. I mean, I don't want to say that we don't want to use evidence-based things, but you just have to work what works for you, but you have to find
Yeah.
that, and it's generally in the day-to-day that you do.
And
Absolutely.
it's the mundane, boring things I find. Like, when I'm
Mm.
having a crappy day now, like that would have been an amazing day for me 6 years ago. And I always get smacked with that reality, like, oh, well, I've done 6 loads of washing, or I've done this and I've done that, and I got dressed and I put my makeup on. And I was like, I think we just need to give ourselves so much more grace and compassion. And I never forget that someone said this saying to me, and they said people overestimate what they can achieve in a year and underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years. And like consistency is not sexy. It's not. But honestly, it is the queen bee. I think we pick something up for a week and go, that hasn't worked, move on, you know? And I
Mm.
see that all the time in my business, like with the products and the health and wellness things we offer. Like people will try it for 2 days and they'll be like, oh, it's made me this, it's made me that, it's made me this way, you know? And I'm like, yeah, because you haven't given your body anything good for like 35 years and your body didn't like it. It's like, nah, girlfriend, we're changing and I don't want to, even though it's good for it.
Yeah.
Like, our body loves comfort and structure and what's safe for it, and what's safe for it may not be what is best for it. So, yeah, I've really learnt that
Absolutely.
over the past couple of years. It's definitely not sexy, but you actually have to stick at something for a decent amount of time. And why not make it something easy and mundane so that it is easy to stick to, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I want to say, would it be 18 months, 2 years since you shared your, I guess, your acknowledgement or shared your journey about undergoing weight loss surgery? You have no, was it how long ago? I know the surgery was quite a while, but when did you
April,
share?
April 22 was when I actually had the surgery. It was probably probably towards the end of that year. Yeah, 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 towards the end
Yeah.
of 20.
And kudos to you, because the more that we share about, particularly as I said, being on a podcast like
Mm.
this, it's going to help someone reduce the stigma and shame around the effing weight loss surgery industry that I have. But what made you make that decision? Obviously, you were having some terrible troubles with your mental health prior to that, and you'd kind of lost yourself in terms of, you obviously weren't feeling good in yourself in terms of that. What made you, I guess, decide that weight loss surgery was the pathway for you?
Um, I think after I'd done all that work on myself and had improved my mindset quite dramatically, I still didn't want to get in the pool with my kids, or I still didn't want to be the fun mum, or, things like that. And gosh, my memory's so bad and I wish I could remember the moment. But for me, when I decide to do something, like we were talking about before, once I've decided,
Yeah.
that is it, I'm in. Like I'm making that happen. It is happening. And that can be really quick for me when I get to that point of I've had enough of my shit. But I think the big
Mhm.
thing for me was I was just beating myself up all of the time and felt like I wasn't enjoying life. And my body had just come to such a standstill, I think, from all of the trauma it had been through, because my pregnancies were not that glorious. Um, that it was just in survival mode. Like I was in survival mode, and anything I tried to like move the weight, like I said before, your body feels safest with what's normal. So I just was not moving any weight, like no matter how hard I tried. And I didn't want it to get to a point where it was so out of control that it was an even more massive process for me, I guess. Like I'm such a big advocate of people that are around what size I was, like seeking help earlier, because I've heard you talk about so much. People will take up to 2 years to make a decision around that. And, by then it could be such a bigger procedure than what it actually could have been 2 years ago, I guess. Like, yeah. Mm.
Absolutely. Timing is everything in terms of making the decision about weight loss surgery. Absolutely. And you have to be well informed. I know that when we had the conversations about it early in your pathway, you'd done a remarkable amount of
Mm.
research. Even though, yes, you'd made the decision, because it was an informed decision. You didn't come in blind and go, I'm just wanting this. I want this because of X, Y, and Z. And that's what we actually thrive on as practitioners, because the more informed the patient is, the more ready they are. And yeah, some people need longer to work up than others, but yeah, it's and as you say, that's you. And then as others can take 2 years to make a decision, and we'll sit and watch this podcast 3 or 4 times over the next 12 months and go, well, I want what Sammy's had because, but I'm too scared, or I've got no finances, or any of those type of things. So yeah, it's a really interesting concept. How has your journey of your weight loss surgery been? Because it's not easy. If anyone tells me that it's
Uh,
easy, I get concerned.
it's a quick fix, isn't
Um,
it?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. How's it been? What's the best, the worst, the ugly?
Good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah,
Obviously, the good is the confidence that I've gained from it, the people I've met, like yourself. The bad, obviously, like when you wake up, that is not a great vibe at all. I remember them making me go for a walk like the night after my surgery, and I was like swearing under my breath. I was like, I fucking hate you. Like,
yeah,
and I was on like ketamine, and we're like pushing our little ketamine trolleys around, and I was like, oh, like if he makes me walk any further, and then like having to walk up and down my driveway in recovery. It's not glamorous at all, but I would go back and do it in a heartbeat. Like I honestly would. There is nothing I would change, like probably except for probably just sitting and knowing that this too shall pass. I guess. Like I think we can have our little itty bitty shitty committees in our head, going, "This is horrible. Why did I do this?" But looking back now, I would absolutely not change it for the world. Yeah.
yeah. Um, for listeners that would listen to this
Yeah.
podcast, what are your advice in terms of engaging in a service for weight loss, or if they're sitting on the fence about whether they're worthy of it, or whether they can afford it, or whether it's worth it, or it's just it's another solution that is going to fail me. I think the fear of failure is a remarkable part of the journey. What's your advice to a person listening to this who's either been sitting on the fence, or is really cautious about, or has that shitty stigma and shame about patients who have had weight loss surgery? What would you say to them?
Knowledge is power. Like it absolutely is. Speak to people that have actually had the surgery. Don't go and speak to your friendship group that know nothing about it. I think sometimes we want to get everyone's approval and have them tell us, go for it. And, I listened to this podcast that actually was speaking about that today. It's like we want other people's approval, because then if it doesn't work, we don't have all the blame on us. And we can be
Yep.
like, oh, well, you told me to do it too. So, like, it's on you as well. Um, but yeah, knowledge is power. Like, it cannot hurt to go in and speak to someone. It cannot hurt to talk to people who have actually had the procedures you want to have, not people, that haven't. But again, be really careful of the people and the groups that you surround yourself with, and your mindset. Like, honestly, 90% of this is mindset. And I think that really needs to be not in check, but you need to understand that it is more of a mindset thing over anything else. So that was one of the reasons why I didn't tell a whole lot of people. In fact, I don't know if you'll laugh at this, but I actually didn't even tell my parents I was having this procedure until I couldn't get myself to Melbourne to have the surgery in that day. And I actually like called my dad and was like, look, I can't get to Melbourne. Dave needs to stay at home and look after the kids. Would you be able to take me down in the morning? Because obviously you can't drive home.
That's
I got
exactly
there and I was
right.
like, oh, maybe if I drove myself there and left my car in the car park, and then Dave could come down on the train, and that's what we were trying to juggle. And then, yeah, so I actually told my dad, and he was like, I think he was a little bit upset that like we hadn't told him, but honestly, I didn't, like I'd booked in like it was the next day, and I was like, I couldn't back out then. So I actually, like, whatever they said wouldn't have changed my decision. But yeah, I was just really conscious of not telling people. And then they were like, obviously really beautiful about it. And they were like, oh my goodness, of course we wouldn't. But I don't know if I could have said the same thing a month ago, like if I'd told them a month out, like I'm thinking of doing this, like would that have been the same
Mm,
thing? Um,
mm.
yeah, but it was so funny. And now, like, honestly, they just smile so much, like, because I knew this person was always in there, like I did. Um, yeah, makes me a little bit emotional, actually. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I'm getting emotional too, because it's not just about weight, is it? Like, and I'm going to get emotional, but it, and that's why I get up out of bed and I do the job that I do, is because um, every day that someone makes the decision to put their health, and this is not just weight loss surgery, this is every day someone walks into this office, I get to help them change their path. And it might just be a blood test to go, okay, that's okay, everything's okay. Let's do a little iron infusion, and you're right as rain, or tweak this nutrition. It could be, and it could be as big as major weight loss surgery. But this is not, as you say, 90% of it's mental health and mindset. I wouldn't say mental health, mindset. What are the benefits other than you, as you say, finding that next version of you? Because I don't like calling it the new version of you, because it's that next. Because we loved the Sammy that was the core of
It's the
Sammy,
same as
but
the mindset thing, isn't it? Like, people are like, oh, it's the new me or it's the 2.0, and I probably said that like after my surgery, to be honest with you. But
no,
now
you
I've
did.
learned, you know, so much of healing and so much of your mindset is actually unlearning all of the things that weren't for you. So I look at the surgery as just like shedding the layers of me that weren't for me. Like, and I actually went through stages of grief for that woman. And, I had a really great friend who supported me mindset wise. And she's like, you actually have to grieve. Like, you are going to grieve for that woman that is no longer you anymore, like that you are unlearning to be, because she gave you your children and she gave you these beautiful things and she gave you these lessons to, so that you could get out and have so much gratitude for what you have now. Like, if I didn't have that person then, I wouldn't have gratitude for who I am now. Like, yeah,
That's
yeah,
right. And she gave you the permission to be who you are now.
absolutely. Yeah,
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 yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Um, Arbonne, let's talk about it, because it's changed your life as well. It's changed mine, and I just got this warm and fuzzy feeling when you were describing that first conference, because I was very lucky to be
Oh,
part
I
of
still
something
remember
like
your
that.
face. Yeah. Hmm.
Um, and it is something else, isn't it? I've never experienced the connection, community, care. Uh, I don't want to say colleagueship, because it's not really a word, I don't think, but you're all there to do the same thing, and it's not about the fucking products. It's absolutely not about the products at all. I've never, a lot of people know I've been quite high up in a nursing organisation. I've spoken at multiple nursing conferences around the world. I've presented and attended. There is nothing like that in my nursing industry. And my goodness, am I kind of keen to look at that. But there is nothing like that. The mindset and the personal development and the professional development that you receive within that company. The products for me were just a bonus. And tell me about your journey. Why did you start Arbonne? Because I actually don't know if I know that. Because it was post surgery, wasn't
Post
it?
kids. Yeah.
Post
Mhm.
kids, there you go.
Yeah, but I don't think I was ready for that gift. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think I used and abused it for a very long time and didn't realize what I had, because I didn't feel worthy enough to have something like that. Um, yeah, so it was pre kids. It was a year into my teaching degree. I had just met Dave. So this is like it was 2014 when I started. Yep, so it's been 10 years. Which is crazy, because if you look at how my life has changed over the past 10 years, I've gone from relationship to married to 2 kids to moving 3 times, and that's been there the whole time. But I did not understand what it was, like the first, until I had that hit rock bottom moment after my second
Mm,
child, and then I realized what I had. Yeah, and sometimes, I feel like like people are like, no regrets, but like I think you can have regrets, like, and I think you can be grateful that you've learned from them, like, and I have regrets that I didn't take what I had on offer that long ago before I had my children, or, you know, and I can't go back and change that, and that is fine. And I'm still here now learning and growing, and we never stopped doing that. But yeah, it was literally a year into my teaching degree, my teaching career, sorry. And it was actually Kristen, who you've had on your podcast, who had an event. So back then we did like these parties, like there where you'd go and experience an event, um, and FOMO because she'd invited like every female teacher at our school. But we actually weren't even really that close. Like she was a really high achieving teacher. She was in leadership, and I was like just a grad first year out, like, you know, still getting drunk and going out on the weekends and, you know, all of that stuff. I wasn't going to
Yep.
go. And then I went and I was like, nah, I'm not taking my makeup off. I'm not trying the skincare. I'm not doing any of that. Like, and then anyway, everyone else was doing it. I was like, oh, FOMO. So I tried the skincare and I was like, fell in love. Like, they actually didn't have a lot of nutrition products back then when I started.
Mm.
And then again, once I make a decision, like I just red hot, all in, go crazy, and experienced all this growth really quickly. But I wasn't ready for it. Like my mindset was nowhere near ready for it. And then I call that the great unraveling because when I had my first child in 2015 was actually when I like lost like some promotion levels that we call in there, and no one else will understand what that means, and that's fine. But it's kind of like, I don't know, you drop down from like whatever level down a couple of levels. And that happened like 3 months after having my first baby. So, you know, I call it the great unraveling, and that everything had to fall apart so that this could all come together. And I feel like it's been falling apart for 4 years before I noticed and did something about it. Yeah, and now I'm so grateful, like, just to hear you talk about the community like that. Like, I still pinch myself with some of the women I get to surround myself with, but also had that gut feeling, like when I walked into your office that first day, I was like, and I always push my gut feeling aside. Like, I always overanalyze it and overcompensate and tell myself stories that it's silly. And I'm learning every day to lean into that just that little bit more, and, you know, listen to myself and back myself. Like, I'm a smart woman. I know I am. Like, but I've got to back myself. And when I walked into your office, I was like, you and I are going to be friends. Like, I knew it. Like, just knew, like, this was more than, like, yeah, this was more than just this procedure and this surgery for me. This was like the beginning of something freaking awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think I
100%.
said that to you
Absolutely. And what a
before.
future it's going to
Yeah.
be. Um, and the vibe was from the very get go. I knew that I knew that you were ready for this surgery, but I knew that you were absolutely 100% able to conquer whatever was going to be thrown at you. And you did. You really did. The whole journey, as I said, is not. It's not for the
Absolutely.
faint-hearted, and quite often I always tell a patient that, you can stop a diet, you can stop exercising. With a tool like weight loss surgery, it doesn't go away, so you can't stop it.
Yeah.
So to
I'm
have
learning
the, I
that
guess,
at the moment.
the courage, right, the courage to be able to go, I need this because I need this to live a healthy, long life. Because essentially that's why we do it. We don't do it because we want you to lose weight and be skinny.
Mm,
We want you to lose weight so that we manage your obesity. And obesity looks different in everyone.
mhm,
And we have criteria that claims it, but obesity is the leading chronic disease in Australia. Actually, I would say the world, and we really don't know. We're not doing enough about it, but you've got to have the courage to go, actually, I don't want to be one of those numbers again, and I don't want to be one of those numbers. And um, yeah, it's a courage, but you can't take the tool away.
no.
So it's, you really, yeah, you can't just switch it off like a diet or the
No.
exercise or even the use of
Hmm.
medications.
Yep.
So yeah, it's yeah, for anyone who says it's easy, It's certainly not. And the changes that have to come with it, the have to, like you really have to lean into it, are ones that, as you say, have pushed you to be better. But it's still fucking uncomfortable in that
Yeah, and
moment,
I'm
right?
still learning right now. Like where you were just like love punching me last week, and you were like, sort your shit out with your diet. Like that's why you're starting to feel like shit, Sam. Like, and you're right that it's a tool that you can't take away because, like, I was almost on the brink of going to the underweight side, like just recently, because I wasn't feeling my
Yeah.
body properly and I wasn't listening to myself, and I was just, you know, going for that instant gratification over that delayed gratification. Like, and I am a big food is my comfort. Like, it is my comfort. I will 100% hand on heart say it's not alcohol, it's not anything, it is food for me. And it still is. But learning to do that in moderation and learning to, if I've had a crappy day, channel that somewhere else. I'm still learning that, and I'm 2 years in, like post surgery. Like I'm still learning those lessons. But I'd rather be learning that than being on medication for whatever because I was overweight, I guess. And that was the
Absolutely.
scariest thing for me. I just didn't want to be that at 34. Like, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
So during your weight loss journey, you also had a journey of self discovery in terms of an ADHD diagnosis.
Yes.
Ha- what made you explore that?
Again, it was one of those really creepy moments. Like, not creepy, like, it was again one of those moments where I was like, listen to your gut. And it was actually just this thing. And like, my husband and I were going through this phase where we were just like sending each other funny reels, literally funny reels. And like, I kept sending him all these ones, like, lol, this is me, this is me, this is me, this is me. I didn't even realize I was sending him like ADHD pages. Like, I didn't. And then he turned around to me, he's like, do you think you have that? I was like, what? He said, do you think you have ADHD? I said, no. Like, I'm so tired. I can't even get off the couch. What do you mean I have ADHD? Like, I'm exhausted.
Yeah,
And then I don't like that question, like, just struck something in me. And then I just went on this big, like, research binge and I was like, holy shit, ADHD in women is totally different to what it is in men. Like I'm sitting here going, what do you mean I have ADHD? I can't even get off the couch. Like I'm exhausted. That's what it is for women. Like your brain does not shut the fuck up ever. And looking back now, there were so many signs. Like, I said before, alcohol wasn't my thing. But when I was like 18, 19, 20, I used to love getting shit faced on the weekend because my brain would shut up. I went through,
yeah,
I used to see psychiatrists, and I told you before, I'd been doing all of the things and seeing all of the people, and nothing was working. Like I was on antidepressants, I was on like bipolar. I even got diagnosed with bipolar, like, and was seeing a
crazy.
psychiatrist and medicated for bipolar, and it wasn't doing anything. Like, so I would just stop because I would get shitty, and it wasn't this instant gratification thing. It wasn't like after a week I was like, F that, that's not working. It was like something deep down in me knew that that was not the right thing. And then, oh, again, the grief hit, like, and when we started that process of going through, again, which I have my own bugbears about, like that needs to change. But anyway, it is a ridiculous process, but that's okay. When we went through that process, I still had this inkling of like, what if I'm making all this up in my head? Like, what if I'm tricking this professional psychiatrist who's done like 10 years of study in his profession? And what if I'm like so clever that I have tricked him into being diagnosed with
Yeah,
this, and I went through that for weeks, and then the grief hit, like, my God, I have had this my whole life, and what has it cost
mm,
me? Like, I was so shy and reserved and quiet and, just little things like I had to go back and read all my school reports and I cried for like hours reading it because it was there. And like I wasn't going to play the victim and blame anybody because we just don't know enough people are not, it's the same with weight loss surgery. People are not educated enough to have an opinion, like, so until you've done
Yeah.
the education that I have done around that area, please don't come at me with your opinion because I don't want to know about it. Like, yeah, pretty much. Mm. Mm.
Absolutely. So, do you mind me asking? And because I reckon the listeners, and it actually pivots very well to the podcast that I've also done this
Mm.
afternoon. Access is incredibly
Mm.
hard, right, to get a diagnosis, particularly in the adult ADHD diagnosis. And you're right, female ADHD is complete opposite to males, and it's the whole science is incredible. And Daniel speaks on the podcast beautifully about that. Um, how did you go about it? Because I know you went online and access because it's so hard
Mm.
locally to get. We live in rural
Yeah, so I actually just
community.
started with a GP visit, which again is an error in
Yep.
itself because I actually don't have one right now because she has left. Um, and
Yep.
went in, and again, knowledge is power. So I'd already done my research, which I think in this day and age we have to. I think a couple of years that was frowned upon, and you were like, just let the professionals do their thing. But I think we have to have a little bit of an understanding of what we might be going through because we live in our body 24/7. Like, so if we go in with something and say, hey, I've done this research, I think I may have this, like, surely our opinion means more than, someone who sees us for 10 minutes when we're sick every whatever amount of months. You know what I mean? And I'm not discrediting GPs at all, but I think a lot of them are really starting to lean into these people know what they want. They're empowered to do their own research, because I think you have to be these days because the system is just so exhausted. And I actually really feel for these people who, GPs probably see like 60, 70 people a day, and we walk into our 10-minute appointment thinking we're like, they're going to treat us like we're their only patient. And, like, they're probably exhausted
Yeah.
too. Like, yes, we have
Absolutely.
to go in a little bit empowered to advocate for ourselves. And that's what I did. And she was like, well, absolutely, we'll send you off I'll give you a referral to here, like, because these people are the specialists. And again, there's no psychiatrists in our area. So she had recommended one online, which was actually really great for me because, again, I'm a little bit of a procrastinator and it takes me a while to get on and book things unless I can book online and then I'll do it straight away. Yeah. And then it was a series of like two pretty full on assessment sessions with him. Um, yeah. And then when I heard that, I was like, okay. Yeah.
I think you text me. I reckon you would text me and go, "Oh my fucking god, this makes
It was like
sense."
the
Like,
missing piece of the puzzle. Like, looking back now, all of the things that like got to me, or I felt odd, or I felt different, or I was like, why can't I be like that, or I used to look at women and be like, why can't I work that many hours or do that, or why can't I finish that task in that amount of hours, like even the simplest things, like down to writing unit plans for teaching, it would take me 4 times longer, and I was just like, oh, like, why am I like that? And I'd get really upset and beat myself up. And now, again, there's no magic pill. Like, you take medication, yes, but it is not a magic pill at all, and your body actually adjusts to those medications pretty quickly. So they're not as effective when you first begin. It can take a really long time to find what works best for you. But I think the one thing it had given me is some compassion and grace for myself. This is the way my brain works. I've always got it done, even if I leave my reports to the night before or something like that, I still get it done. Like, and there's no point sitting there crying about it because I've left it to the last minute. It's how my brain works. And I've managed to get by this long. So why don't I just give myself a little bit of love and go, that's that. Like, and now at least I know what that is. So yeah, we do giggle and joke about it a lot. But I've probably still got a lot of work to do around that too, and a lot of advocating. But, the more I speak up about things, like, I think like 9 or 10 of my girlfriends have been through the weight loss procedure now since I have. And I know at least 4 or 5 other women who have gone on to get an ADHD diagnosis because of what I have spoken about. And I'm nowhere near as open as I would like to be, but I'm getting there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're on the podcast, so I think that's pretty open.
Yeah. I'm much better on a podcast or an Instagram story or than like talking in a room full of people where they're looking at me. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we know the past Sammy, we know where she's, she currently is. What's the future Sammy look
Mm.
like? What's her health and well-being goals and what's her life goals, I guess? Big deep question,
Oh,
isn't it? Sorry.
no, thanks. I'm still in the of
Yeah.
discovering that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
okay.
again, I get that urge that there's more. I don't know if anyone else
Yeah.
gets that urge. Like I've always had that urge that there's more, I was made for more. It doesn't take away what I have right now, and I still enjoy and I'm so grateful for what I have right now. But I think I'm not in my discomfort enough. Like I'm still a little bit in a bit of that Groundhog Day, juggling all the balls, doing all the things. And I am in this process of discovering what is next for me. And we were just talking about that before. And it is definitely moving away from like the things that I'm feeling less aligned in and discovering how I want to help and add value and um, be of assistance to others, like to have what I have, I guess. And I don't want to say that in an arrogant way, but it's taken a lot of work to
Oh,
go, I have a story to share, I have value to give. I always used to be like, oh, like, why me? Or why would they, like, why would you want to come and surround yourself with me? And, I always downplayed that. And to the point, and this is probably an ADHD thing, where I used to think like, there was some trick going on, like, oh, something's going on, like they're using and abusing me and then going to drop me. And that's like the rejection sensitivity stuff with the ADHD. Like, that's always been huge in my life. But now that I'm aware of it, it's not as real anymore. Like, I can talk myself around that, or I can express that to someone now. Like I can tell a friend and they can be like, oh my goodness, is that actually what you were thinking? And I was like, well, yes, like I was. Like, that's my
yeah.
brain telling me what I think. But now I can own it a little bit more, and I think sharing it, like, a problem shared is a problem halved sort of thing, like
Mm,
dumping your stuff on other people, but it lightens that load a little bit more for to talk it through with someone, I think. So yeah, definitely moving into health and wellness space a lot more, looking at what that looks like, um,
yeah.
and I'm excited. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
great. It's amazing.
Mm.
So I've got one last question for you.
Sure.
If, because this has been amazing, and I know that every woman, particularly, as I said, I'm going to focus on women, will be driving or listening to them folding their washing and drinking their fizz.
Absolutely. You got to romanticize the mundane. That's what I call it. You got to make it
100%.
sexy.
Or,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Or sitting in front of their laptop, organizing their life because structure is important.
And we do 8,000 things
Um,
at once, like we do. Mm.
yeah, that's exactly right. What would you say to the woman who is listening that is uncertain about taking her own health and well-being journey? What would you say to her? What would you whisper into her ear or hold her hand and
Oh, God, you made me
yeah.
cry. Stop that. Like, if it is scary, start small. Start with one
Mm,
thing, like one appointment, one website, one podcast. Like, we can't underestimate the power of one little thing and where that will lead, I think, is my biggest advice. Just one thing. And then it's not scary. Like, I'm such a big comfort zone person. I am. And I'm a big advocate of tiptoeing out of your comfort zone. Like, people are just like, balls to the wall, go quit my job, start this, do that. I can't do that because it sends me into survival mode. And the more I learn about this nervous system stuff, the more passionate I am about the nervous system and our fight, flight, and survival responses. Like, I was in survival mode for how many years? Um,
mm,
and that's my safe. Survival mode is my safe. So being in like
Mm.
that sympathetic dominance where everything is heightened and I'm, you know, literally like a bear might be attacking me. Like that's my safe. So to come into that other is uncomfortable for me, but you have to tiptoe out slowly, like make your bed,
Yeah.
you know, fold your washing every night while you watch Netflix instead of scrolling on your phone on Instagram at the same time. Like you can't underestimate these little things, like reset your kitchen every night before you go to bed. Take one supplement, book one appointment, talk to one person who has what you want. I think that's the biggest thing. Don't take advice from people who don't have what you want. Like, yeah, I'm very big on only getting advice from people who have what I want or have are where I want to be or have done what I want to do. Um, you need to speak to those people. And if me or
Mm.
Beck, like seriously, I don't care if I get this random inbox on my Instagram. Like, I actually love helping people. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. And that is why you're going to follow into that
Mm.
pathway of that well-being space, because that's where your heart's leading
And I
you.
think it just comes really naturally to me. Like again, I don't want to, I'm trying not trying to be arrogant, but I actually do think it lights me up and it gives me joy, and I love like hashing out stuff with people and talking to them. And like I was doing it the other day with a teacher at school, and I was like, darling, stop being so hard on yourself. Like, like you're doing an amazing job, like I know you are. And some days we just don't get it right. Like we're dealing with 28 kids in a classroom, and if they come in unregulated, you can't be the miracle woman that gets all 28 to do what they need to do. And she turned around to me, she's like, oh my
That's right.
God, I feel like I can breathe right now. And I was like, sometimes it's just not about us. You know what I mean? Like half the time we take things so personally, and it's really all about the other person. Like nothing to do
Absolutely.
with us. And sometimes we just cannot help that person that day. Or, I know what I'm like when I get like that. No
Yeah.
one, anything says to me is going to help me. Like I'm just going to have my day. Like, yeah. Mm,
Absolutely.
mm. So, yeah, stuff.
Absolutely. Well, that is a beautiful, like I've got
Mm.
goosebumps and tears in my eyes because it is the most amazing way to finish this podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I have absolutely no reason to believe that people won't benefit from this. As I said, this whole podcast is all about educating, empowering people to actually take charge and take action. And as you say, it doesn't have to be big; it can be small. And you know, yeah, don't be envious of what people have that you want. Actually, stand in their circle, tap them on the shoulder,
Can I
and
say
say, "Hey,
on that? I think if you see something that somebody else has and you're like, I want that. I've learnt to retrain my brain that if I can see that, that means it's available for me too. That's why I'm being shown it. It happens all the time. It's
yep,
actually a part of your brain that does that. Like, go and look it up. The RAS, reticular activating system. Go and Google it. Like, it is
exactly
a
right."
thing. So when you see something and you're like, I wish I could have that, like you can have that. That's why it is being shown to you. It's like when you go to buy a new car, and you like never see that car on the road, and then you go and look at it and test drive it, and then all of a sudden you see 40 of them on the road. That is your brain filtering what's important to you. So keep that
Yep,
important and take steps towards that, definitely.
absolutely,
Mm.
absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sammy. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. As I said, I have no doubt you will get some remarkable nuggets. Have a wonderful evening, and thanks for listening.